First contact. The discovery happened in the most mundane way possible. Routine ice core samples from Europa's southern hemisphere. Nothing that should have made history. Dr. Lydia Chen reviewed the anomalous readings for the third time, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid monitoring station. The quantum resonance patterns were unlike anything in the database. Run it again, she instructed the AI, though she knew the result would be the same. Something lay beneath 2 kilometers of Europan ice that defied classification. 3 weeks later, the first images emerged as specialized thermal drills finally breached the subterranean chamber. What they found wasn't a natural formation, but unmistakably artificial. A massive structure of impossible geometry, its obsidian surface absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Most extraordinary was that it had remained undetected by every scan ever conducted of Jupiter's icy moon. "It's as if it wanted to be found now," Chen murmured during the first official briefing, a statement that would prove more prophetic than anyone realized. News of the discovery spread rapidly across the Sol system and beyond. Humanity had established diplomatic relations with 11 known spacefaring species over the previous century, each with their own agendas and technologies. Earth's position as a relatively new entrant to interstellar politics meant that such a significant discovery on humanity's doorstep created immediate political complications. The Vorkadian ascendancy, with their crystalline exoskeletons and mastery of quantum mechanics, were the first to dispatch a research vessel. The arthropodal Trizek hive followed within days, as did representatives from the ethereal Marin Collective. Each demanded equal access under various interstellar treaties and conventions. Ambassador Sarah Okonkwo, Earth's senior diplomat to the Galactic Concord, found herself navigating the most delicate diplomatic crisis of her career. The pressure to allow unrestricted alien access to the Europan discovery was immense. "This discovery exists in human sovereign territory," she reminded the assembled alien dignitaries during an emergency session. "While we welcome scientific collaboration, primary research authority remains with Earth." What no one anticipated was that the structure itself would render these arguments moot. The first attempt at direct contact with the structure was conducted jointly. A carefully negotiated compromise that included representatives from all major species. Dr. Kayamara led the human contingent, joined by Vorkadian quantum physicist Zivzal, Trizek neurobiologist Kiksucht, and others. They approached the structure in environmental suits, carrying various sensor arrays and contact protocols. The structure remained inert as the Vorkadian approached, its crystalline manipulators extended to probe the obsidian surface. Nothing. The Trizak attempted to establish a bioelectric resonance field. Nothing. The Marin representative generated a complex psionic pattern. Still nothing. Then Dr. Amara, purely out of human instinct, removed her glove and placed her bare palm against the surface. The structure awakened. Geometric patterns of blue-white light cascaded across its surface, flowing like liquid mathematics. The patterns converged around Amara's hand, creating a luminous connection that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Everyone present felt the sudden shift in the chamber's energy, as if reality itself held its breath. "It's scanning me," Amara whispered, her voice trembling with wonder rather than fear. "It's responding." When the Vorkadian Zivexel attempted to approach, the patterns shifted to red, and a subtle repulsive force held the crystalline being at bay. The same occurred with every non-human who attempted contact. Only when another human researcher approached did the patterns return to their welcoming blue-white configuration. The implications were immediate and profound. The artifact appears to recognize human genetic or neurological structures specifically, Dr. Chen reported during an emergency briefing. It actively differentiates between humans and non-humans and only permits human interaction. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. The Vorkadian ambassador, Vexkull, demanded a complete genetic breakdown of human biology, insisting that the relevant markers be synthesized to allow Vorkadian access. The Trizek went further, suggesting that human subjects be temporarily placed under their control to facilitate proper research protocols. Ambassador Okonkwo rejected both proposals outright. "We're as surprised by this development as you are," she stated firmly. "But we will not subject human citizens to experimentation or surrender our genetic sovereignty." In the days that followed, the structure, now commonly called the Vault in Human Communications, continued to respond only to human presence. More troubling for the alien representatives was that it seemed to respond differently to each individual human who made contact. For Dr. Amara, it generated complex mathematical sequences that eventually resolved into fundamental physical constants with subtle, unexplainable variations. For Commander Jackson, head of security, it produced patterns that resembled tactical formations. For Dr. Equency, a linguist, it created what appeared to be the foundations of a symbolic language. "It's not just recognizing us as humans," Dr. Chen theorized. "It's recognizing us as individuals and tailoring its response accordingly." The alien delegations observed with increasing agitation. An artifact of clearly ancient and advanced design that recognized and preferred human interaction was more than a scientific curiosity. It represented a potential shift in interstellar power dynamics. The Galactic Concord convened an emergency session, with the Europan discovery as the sole agenda item. High Commissioner Tlaxer of the Marin Collective addressed the assembly with unusual directness. "We must consider the security implications of this technology being exclusively accessible to the youngest spacefaring species," the ethereal being stated, its translucent form rippling with bioluminescent patterns of concern. "The balance that has maintained peace among our civilizations for millennia may be at risk." On Europa, the research continued. A joint team was established, with humans conducting direct interaction with the vault, while non-human specialists analyzed the data from a safe distance. Despite initial tensions, the arrangement proved productive. The Vorkadians' superior quantum computing capabilities helped decode complex mathematical sequences, while Trezec pattern recognition algorithms identified recurring symbols. 6 weeks into the research mission, the breakthrough came. Dr. Chen, working with Vorkadian quantum analyst Ziv Vasal, identified a recurring sequence embedded in the vault's communications that appeared to represent coordinates. Not just spatial coordinates, Dr. Chen explained to the assembled team. Temporal coordinates as well. It's pointing to specific locations at specific times. The first set of coordinates matched perfectly with Europa's current position. The second pointed to Earth, specifically to a location in East Africa, the region long established as the cradle of human evolution. "It knew where we came from," whispered Dr. Equency, "and it's been waiting for us." The third set of coordinates was projected into the future, approximately 100,000 years forward. The location was a star system 30 light-years from Earth that hadn't even been named in human star charts. As this discovery was being processed, the vault's behavior changed. When Dr. Amara next approached, instead of the now familiar patterns, a section of the obsidian wall simply vanished, revealing an entrance. The diplomatic corps immediately scrambled to establish protocols for entering the structure, with every species demanding representation. Ambassador Okonkwo, in consultation with Earth's Security Council, made the decision that would define humanity's future. "Initial exploration will be conducted by a human team," she announced. "Given the structure's clear preference for human interaction, this represents the safest approach. Data will be shared with all Concord members in accordance with treaty obligations." Despite vehement protests, particularly from the Vorkadian ascendancy, the decision stood. Dr. Chen led the first exploration team into the vault, accompanied by Dr. Amara, Commander Jackson, and 3 other specialists. Inside, the vault revealed itself not as a single chamber, but as a vast complex of interconnected spaces, each demonstrating impossible geometries that seemed to fold in on themselves. Physical laws behaved differently within. Gravity shifted subtly between chambers, light bent in ways that defied conventional optics, and time itself seemed to flow at variable rates. In the central chamber, they found what could only be described as an interface, a floating sphere of what appeared to be liquid metal, suspended in midair. "This is it," Dr. Chen said quietly. "This is what it's been leading us toward." Dr. Amara approached the sphere cautiously. As her hand made contact, the liquid metal flowed around her fingers, and her eyes widened as information flooded directly into her consciousness. "They called themselves the progenitors," she gasped, struggling to process the vast influx of knowledge. "They seeded life throughout the galaxy, evolutionary experiments across thousands of worlds. We were their final project. Their inheritors." Outside the vault, tension among the alien delegations reached a breaking point. The Vorkadian delegation, frustrated by their continued exclusion from direct contact with the vault, began preparations to deploy specialized drones designed to bypass the structure's recognition systems. The Trizak representative, detecting this action through their hypersensitive electromagnetic organs, immediately alerted the human security team. Commander Elena Dias confronted the Vorkadian team just as they were launching the first drone. "This constitutes a direct violation of the research protocols you agreed to," she stated firmly. "Stand down immediately." The Vorkadian engineer Kixval's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. "Your species has no right to monopolize this technology. The Ascendancy has navigated the stars for millennia while your kind was still discovering fire. And yet the Vault chose us." Dias replied simply, "That's not our doing." Inside the Vault, unaware of the confrontation outside, Dr. Amara continued to interface with the sphere, her consciousness expanding to encompass knowledge no human was ever meant to hold. Tears streamed down her face as revelations cascaded through her mind. "The progenitors," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They weren't just scientists. They were running from something. Something vast and ancient and hungry at the edges of the galaxy. They created us as their legacy, their hope." The sphere pulsed once, brilliantly, and Dr. Amara collapsed as the connection broke. Dr. Chen rushed to her side as the chamber around them began to transform. The obsidian walls became transparent, revealing a vast holographic display that filled the space with stars and worlds. At the center of the display, Earth rotated slowly, surrounded by markers and symbols that none of them could yet decipher. But the message was clear. Humanity stood at the center of something far greater than they had ever imagined. As Dr. Amara regained consciousness, she grabbed Dr. Chen's arm with unexpected strength. "It's beginning," she said, her eyes now carrying a profound knowledge that hadn't been there before. "The trials. The Vault doesn't just recognize us. It's evaluating us, and we're not the first species it's tested." Outside, as tensions between the human security team and the Vorkadian engineers threatened to escalate into a diplomatic incident, every communication device simultaneously activated with the same message, a series of symbols transmitted directly from the Vault. The symbols translated into a single phrase in every known language. "The inheritors have returned. The reclamation begins." No one, human or alien, knew exactly what this meant, but as ships from more alien civilizations began to arrive in the Jovian system, drawn by news of the discovery, one thing became increasingly clear. Humanity's place in the galactic order was about to change forever. The awakening. The reclamation begins. Those three words echoed across the Sol system and beyond, triggering a fundamental shift in interstellar politics. Within days, vessels from 17 spacefaring civilizations crowded the Jovian system, each demanding access to what was now being called the Progenitor Vault. Earth's relatively modest defensive capabilities were suddenly the only thing standing between humanity and the overwhelming technological superiority of species that had navigated the stars while humans were still developing agriculture. In a secure conference room aboard the Europan research station, Dr. Lydia Chen faced the holographic projections of Earth's Security Council. "The Vault has begun initiating what appear to be evolutionary trials," she explained, her exhaustion evident even through the quantum-entangled transmission. "Dr. Amara's neural patterns have been permanently altered by her contact with the interface. She's processing information at rates that shouldn't be possible for a human brain. Is she still human? Asked Defense Minister Okoro, voicing the question everyone feared to ask. Genetically, yes, Chen replied. Cognitively, she's something more. And she insists this is only the beginning. Ambassador Okonkwo joined the briefing, her diplomatic uniform immaculate despite the crisis. The Vorkadian Ascendancy has formally requested that Dr. Amara be transferred to their research vessel for comprehensive analysis. The Trizek Hive has made similar demands, and the Marin Collective has threatened to invoke Article 7 of the Concord Charter, which would classify the Vault as a threat to galactic security. Minister Okoro noted grimly, giving them legal justification to seize control. We need more time, Dr. Chen insisted. The Vault is communicating something crucial about our origins, possibly our future. If we lose access now, we may never understand what the progenitors intended for us. The Council deliberated briefly before reaching a consensus. Earth would maintain its position. The Vault was discovered in human territory and responded only to humans. Collaborative research would continue, but direct access would remain under human control. The alien response was immediate and ominous. The Vorkadian research vessel repositioned itself between Europa and Jupiter, its quantum weapon arrays clearly visible even to basic scans. 3 Trizek scout ships established an orbital pattern around Europa itself. The message was clear. If diplomacy failed, other options remained available. Inside the Vault, however, events were unfolding that would soon render these political maneuvers irrelevant. Dr. Kayamara moved through the complex with newfound purpose, her eyes occasionally flashing with suffocating geometric patterns similar to those displayed by the Vault itself. She led the research team to previously undiscovered chambers, each revealing new aspects of the progenitors' technology and purpose. They seeded life throughout this galactic sector, she explained, her voice taking on harmonic overtones when she discussed the progenitors. Over 2 billion years of evolutionary experimentation across thousands of worlds. The Vorkadians, the Trizek, the Marin, all were early test cases, evolutionary branches that the progenitors considered incomplete. Commander Jackson eyed her warily. And humans, what were we to them? Their final project, Amara replied simply, the culmination of their work before they departed this galaxy. In the primary interface chamber, Dr. Amara placed her hand on the liquid metal sphere once again. This time, rather than collapsing, she remained standing as the chamber transformed around them. The holographic display expanded, showing hundreds of star systems linked by pulsing lines of energy. The progenitor network, she explained. Vaults like this one exist on worlds throughout these systems, each containing technologies and knowledge the progenitors left behind, each waiting for the inheritors to claim them. Why now? Dr. Chen asked the question that had been haunting her since the discovery. Why did the Vault reveal itself to us now, when we've barely established ourselves beyond our own solar system? Amara's expression darkened. Because time is running out. The thing the progenitors fled from, it's returning. They called it the Void Tide. A sentient darkness that consumes civilizations, that feeds on intelligent life and the energy of stars. It moves between galaxies on cycles of roughly 50,000 years. Its leading edge will reach our galaxy within a century. The revelation sent shockwaves through the research team. If true, it represented an extinction-level threat, not just to humanity, but to all known civilizations. The progenitors couldn't stop it, Amara continued, but they developed technologies that could help a species survive it, perhaps even push it back. Technologies they left in vaults across the galaxy, accessible only to their chosen inheritors. Us, whispered Dr. Equency. They chose humans. But why? Commander Jackson demanded. What makes us special compared to species that have had interstellar civilizations for thousands of years? Before Amara could answer, the vault's internal systems pulsed with warning signals. External sensors detected energy buildup consistent with weapons charging. Outside, the diplomatic situation had deteriorated completely. A Vorkadian assault team had disabled the human security perimeter and was attempting to force entry into the vault. Their crystalline exoskeletons crackled with quantum energies as they deployed specialized cutting tools against the obsidian surface. This is a violation of multiple treaties. Ambassador Okonkwo's protest rang out across emergency channels. Stand down immediately. The Vorkadian commander, Sivkal, responded with cold precision. The Ascendancy has determined that human monopolization of progenitor technology constitutes an unacceptable security risk. We are exercising our right of preemptive intervention under Concord security protocols. Inside the vault, the human research team found themselves cut off from external communications. Dr. Chen looked to Dr. Amara, whose transformed consciousness seemed their best hope for understanding what was happening. The vault is activating its defense systems, Amara explained, watching patterns flow across the walls. But it won't harm sentient beings. That violates progenitor ethical constraints. It's initiating something else. The next trial. The liquid metal interface in the central chamber began to expand, flowing outward to form a perfect sphere 3 meters in diameter. Its surface rippled with complex patterns that seemed to draw the eye and mind into infinite recursive depths. It's a collective intelligence test, Amara said, her voice taking on that harmonic quality again. The final evaluation to determine if we're truly ready to access the full progenitor inheritance. We must solve it before the Vorkadians breach the outer hull. The nature of the test became clear as the sphere projected a three-dimensional problem construct into the center of the chamber, a representation of interconnected systems so complex that it defied immediate comprehension. Stellar mechanics, quantum field theory, neurological mapping, and evolutionary algorithms all interwoven into a single problem statement. This is beyond any individual human capability, Dr. Chen said, scanning the projected data with growing alarm. Even with our best AI systems, this would take weeks to solve. Dr. Amara smiled for the first time since her transformation. That's the point, Lydia. The progenitors didn't choose humans because we're the strongest or the smartest. They chose us because of what makes us unique among all the species they seeded, our ability to cooperate, to solve problems collectively in ways that transcend individual limitations. Outside, the Vorkadian cutting tools had begun to penetrate the vault's outer layer. Alarms echoed through the complex as secondary defense systems engaged, slowing but not stopping the intrusion. We need to solve this now, Commander Jackson urged, watching the security feeds with growing concern. Whatever this test is, we need to pass it before they get through. The research team gathered around the problem construct, each bringing their specific expertise to bear. Dr. Chen's understanding of quantum mechanics interfaced with Dr. Ikwensi's linguistic pattern recognition. Commander Jackson's tactical analysis complemented the engineering insights of Dr. Rodriguez. Most surprising was the contribution of Technician Park, the youngest and least credentialed member of the team, whose intuitive grasp of multidimensional topologies provided a framework that connected disparate elements of the problem. It's not about finding a single solution, Park realized, tracing connections in the holographic display. It's about finding a balance between competing systems, allowing for diversity within unity. As they worked, something extraordinary began to happen. The neural implants standard to all research personnel began to synchronize, creating a rudimentary collective intelligence that amplified their cognitive capabilities. Ideas flowed between them with increasing speed and clarity, individual insights merging into a collaborative problem-solving approach that was greater than the sum of its parts. This is it, Dr. Amara whispered, watching the process unfold. This is what the progenitors saw in us, our capacity for true collaboration, for cognitive empathy that allows us to think together while maintaining our individual perspectives. Outside, the Vorkadian assault team had breached the outer hull and was navigating the vault's labyrinthine corridors. Their crystalline forms moved with precision efficiency, quantum scanning systems mapping their path toward the central chamber. Inside that chamber, the human research team had reached a critical juncture in their solution. The problem construct had resolved into a representation of balanced systems, biological, technological, and physical forces in perfect harmony. But one element remained undefined, a variable that refused to stabilize. It's asking for a choice, Dr. Chen realized. A definition of what makes humanity the rightful inheritors, not just the solution to the problem, but a declaration of intent. Dr. Amara nodded, her eyes flashing with internal light. What will we do with the progenitor inheritance? How will we define ourselves as their successors? This isn't just a test of ability, it's a test of character. The team fell silent, contemplating the enormity of the question. They were being asked to define humanity's purpose not just for themselves, but for all who would come after them. It was Commander Jackson, the military officer, who surprised everyone with her answer. Guardians, she said simply. Not conquerors, not rulers, but protectors. If this void tide threatens all life, then we use the inheritance to defend all life, not just human life. The others nodded in agreement, each adding their own perspective to this fundamental definition. Unity in diversity, collaboration without coercion, strength through cooperation. As their collective vision crystallized, the final variable in the problem construct stabilized. The entire representation collapsed into a single point of brilliant light, then expanded again as a comprehensive galactic map showing the location of every progenitor vault, every technology cache, and every world seeded by their ancient creators. Access granted, announced a voice that seemed to emanate from the vault itself, the first direct communication they had received. Inheritor status confirmed. The liquid metal interface flowed back to its original form, but not before tendrils extended to touch each human present. Information cascaded through their consciousness, not transforming them as it had Dr. Amara, but conveying critical knowledge about the progenitor network and the technologies it contained. At that moment, the Vorkadian assault team breached the final barrier, crystalline forms surging into the chamber with weapons ready. They froze at the threshold, their sensory organs registering the activated state of the vault and the changed status of the humans before them. "You are too late, HFY," Dr. Amara addressed the Vorkadian commander, her voice now carrying undeniable authority. "The trial is complete. The inheritance has been claimed." The chamber's holographic systems activated, projecting the image of a humanoid figure composed of light and complex geometric patterns, an avatar of the vault's sentience. "The inheritors have been recognized," it stated, its voice resonating on multiple harmonics. As was foretold by the progenitors, they have demonstrated the cognitive empathy, collaborative intelligence, and ethical framework necessary to assume responsibility for the network. The Vorkadian commander's crystalline form vibrated with suppressed rage. "This technology rightfully belongs to all spacefaring species. The ascendancy will not recognize this human claim." "It is not a claim," the avatar replied. "It is a responsibility. The progenitors designed humans specifically for this purpose, a species with the adaptability of the Trizek, the conceptual intelligence of the Vorkadians, and the empathic capacity of the Marin, integrated into a balanced whole." The holographic display expanded to show the approaching void tide, a visualization of darkness moving between galaxies, consuming light and life in its path. "All seeded species have their role in what comes next," the avatar continued. "The humans do not stand alone against the void tide. They stand as coordinators of a unified response, inheritors of the progenitor legacy, but not its sole beneficiaries." Dr. Chen stepped forward, addressing both the avatar and the Vorkadian commander. "We understand the responsibility we've been given. The progenitor technology will be used to protect all sentient life, not to establish human dominance. And if we refuse to accept human leadership," HFY challenged, "then you face the void tide alone." Dr. Amara replied simply, "But that is not the path we choose. We choose alliance, cooperation, mutual protection. the very qualities that made us the inheritors. In the days that followed, the full implications of the vault's awakening became clear. Similar structures around the galaxy had simultaneously activated, responding to the successful completion of the trial on Europa. Each contained technologies, knowledge, and capabilities beyond current scientific understanding, pieces of a comprehensive defensive network designed to protect the galaxy from the approaching cosmic horror. A new concord was formed, not one of uneasy coexistence, but of meaningful cooperation. The Vorkadians contributed their mastery of quantum mechanics, the Trizak their biological adaptability, the Marin their psionic capabilities. Each species brought their evolutionary strengths to bear on the monumental task ahead. Humanity's role was not that of conqueror or ruler, but of connector. The species uniquely evolved to understand and integrate diverse perspectives, to find unity in difference, to build collaborative solutions greater than any individual approach. 1 year after the discovery on Europa, Dr. Lydia Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Progenitor Coordination Station in Earth orbit. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations worked together below, their ancient rivalries set aside in the face of existential threat. Dr. Amara, now serving as primary liaison to the Progenitor Network, joined her at the viewport. Her eyes still occasionally flashed with geometric patterns, a permanent reminder of her transformed consciousness. "Do you think we'll succeed?" Chen asked quietly, against something that even the progenitors couldn't defeat. Amara smiled. "The progenitors didn't fail, Lydia. This was always their plan. They couldn't defeat the Void Tide directly, so they seeded the galaxy with diversity. Different evolutionary approaches, different forms of intelligence, different ways of perceiving reality. And then they created us to bring it all together when the time came." She gestured to the unprecedented cooperation happening below them. Species that had been bitter rivals now working side by side, combining technologies and insights in ways never before attempted. "This is what makes us the inheritors," Amara said softly. "Not our strength or our intelligence, but our capacity to bring others together, to find the connections between seemingly incompatible perspectives. The progenitors didn't just leave us technology, they gave us purpose." Beyond the viewport, Earth rotated serenely, its blue-white surface catching the light of the sun. Around it, vessels from dozens of civilizations formed a protective constellation, the first visible manifestation of a new galactic order. The vault had awakened, the inheritors had been recognized, and though darkness approached from the depths between galaxies, for the first time in its long history, the Milky Way would face that darkness united.